Hey good people, welcome back to my channel. And listen, before we get into any content for the day, can I just say thank you? Thank you, friend. Y'all, listen, y'all absolutely showed out last week when I dropped this YouTube channel. The love, the support, the comments, the likes, the DMs, the shares, y'all. I was overwhelmed by the amount of love and support that y'all showed me. So thank you so much for just showing love, showing up, and just I don't know. Y'all just put the icing on the cake for my 33rd birthday. I dropped the channel on my birthday last Wednesday, January 10th, and it was just the most beautiful birthday present I could have given to myself. And just knowing that so many of you were excited about me releasing my channel, so many of you were looking forward to what I had to say, it just really warmed my heart. And I just want to say thank you so much. Y'all, we are 38 subscribers strong, baby. Okay. Can we get some okay, yeah, that celebration music, some commotion, okay? We are 38 subscribers strong. Thank you so much for subscribing to my channel. And if you're not subscribed yet, wherever on this screen they have the subscribe button, hit that so you cannot miss anything that's dropped on my channel. So I just want to again say thank y'all so much. Y'all are family. Welcome. I hope you feel safe. I hope you feel the love. I hope that as we continue to dive into content that you find resources, you find solutions, you find clarity, and I'm so excited to serve you in this capacity. So today's episode is a Daughter Society podcast episode. And like I told you in my welcome video, we are starting a new series called Rooted Resolutions. Yes. Cheers for the new series. So I am going to be doing this 3-part series called Rooted Resolutions, and it's going to be all about how we can ensure that we set our goals, our resolutions, our intentions for the year in good soil and not in faulty soil. And as I dive into today's episode, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. So we all know around this time of year, everybody's thinking about goals, right? Everybody's setting New Year's resolutions, intentions, goal. Everybody has like a different name for it. But ultimately, we are trying to design what we want to see in this new year. We are trying to visioneer what it is that we desire. We want to put it in words. We want to map it out. We want to get visuals. People are making vision boards, prayer boards, all type of boards. And we are ultimately trying to set a target for what we want to achieve in this new year. So usually for me, I start thinking about this around December. I do a lot of meditation, a lot of prayer, and just really asking God, what is it that he wants from me in this new year? What is it that he desires from me in this new year? And the interesting thing that happened to me in December of last year had a lot going on. It was filled with a lot of grief. It was filled with, I got like really sick in December. There was so much going on. We had a major loss in our family, and it was just a lot. So December for me was like, I don't know, in my mind, it's a little bit of a blur because there was so much going on. But what I do specifically remember when I was kind of coming up for air and kind of beginning to go through the process of mapping out New Year's goals or resolutions, I feel like God kind of gave me a check. And he was like, Amanda, if we're going to be honest, some of your goals for the new year or your resolutions or your intentions for the new year's past were rooted in the wrong things. Some of the resolutions that you've mapped out were mapped out because you were trying to prove something. Some of the resolutions that you've mapped out before were mapped out because you had kind of lacked faith in the area. So you were kind of giving in some spaces and just kind of lowering your expectations. Some of your resolutions were rooted in just what the culture was saying and what the culture was talking about, and everybody saying that this is the year to do this and this is the year to do that. And what he told me was, this year I want to make sure that your resolutions, that your goals, your intentions are rooted in your identity as daughter, that they're rooted in me, that they're rooted from good ground, good soil, from a healthy space and not from an unhealthy space. So this series is going to really dive into three different areas, three different topics when it comes to the revelation that God gave me about rooted resolutions. Resolutions that are grounded in good soil. Resolutions that come out of the overflow of your identity as daughter. Resolutions that come from time spent in God's presence, that come from a healthy place, right? So there were three different things that God kind of knocked on my door about and talked to me when it comes to rooted resolutions that I'm going to be walking with you guys over the next 3 episodes of the podcast. So one of the things that he really dive deep into me on was reviving my faith. And we're going to talk about that in today's episode, which is called Don't Call It Dead. So one of the things he talked to me about was reviving my faith. And essentially with this, what he was trying to get me to see was that many of the things that I had mapped out years past were almost like edited versions of what I had once believed God for, but my faith dwindled. So I was kind of doing like a secondary version of the thing. So God, I really want this, but for whatever reason, which we're going to get into some of those reasons today, maybe the timing was off or what have you. For whatever reason, I've given up on it and decided that, okay, now I'm going to put the lesser thing because the thing I truly desire hasn't manifested yet. So my faith has dwindled and now I'm kind of going with the plan B. So he wanted me to kind of check that all my resolutions were rooted in faith. And were there any areas in my life where I needed my faith to be revived? The second thing was that he wanted me to revisit the why. And we're going to get deeper into that in next week's episode that's going to be called What's on the Trophy. The Lord really wanted me to revisit my why and ask myself, okay, who am I doing this for? Why am I doing it? And what do I feel like I'm going to receive if I accomplish this thing or if I get this thing done? Because for many of us, our goals or our resolutions aren't necessarily about what we know we need to do for our purpose or our destiny or what we need to do for ourselves. A lot of us, we have external reasons for why we want to achieve a particular thing. And that's not always unhealthy, but oftentimes it can be unhealthy. Sometimes we're doing things to perform. Sometimes we're doing things because we want to prove people wrong. Sometimes we're doing things because we want everybody to look at us and see that we've done XYZ, right? And the last thing he gave me was returning to holy practices. And we're going to kind of dive into that a little bit in the 3rd episode that's going to be called Room for Rest, okay? And with this, the Lord was really talking to me about, hey, as you go and you pursue these different goals and these different ambitions that you set out, return to holy practices. And by holy practices, I mean those fundamental things that we know that scripture instructs us to do as we walk this journey in life. So everything from fasting to daily devotion to prayer. But one of the main things that the Lord really kind of focused in on was a concept of rest. And I don't know about you, I'm not necessarily the best at resting, but what I really had to take in when he was speaking to me is that rest goes just beyond the physical. Rest is also mental, right? So it's not just, hey, are you taking naps? Are you slowing down? Are you going on vacation? Are you making, space and time for self-care? All those things are amazing, but mental rest. Do you trust and believe in God to see you to the finish line enough that during the journey, you aren't having this constant anxiety, this constant turmoil, this constant anxiousness of if I don't do da 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 da, then blah, 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 blah. Or are you at a space of I'm going to do my part, God's going to meet me in the middle, and I'm going to get there. So over the next 3 weeks, we're going to dive deep into these things. So we're going to talk about reviving our faith and don't call it dead, which is today's episode. We're going to talk about revisiting our why in next week's episode, which will be called What's on the Trophy. We're going to end this series focusing in on returning to holy practices in our final episode. And one really exciting thing that I'm excited to bring to this platform and to the Daughter Society podcast as a whole is, y'all, I don't want you to just hear this content, listen to it, and it feel good. I want you to actually apply it in your lives. So I've created a downloadable worksheet that's absolutely free to you to help you kind of process some of the concepts that we're going to talk about throughout this series, to help you have some honest time to ask yourself some real questions and get to some answers, and maybe kind of look at this as an opportunity to do a little bit of a quality check on your resolutions, a little bit of a, quality assurance on, hey, I mapped out all these goals, but are they rooted in the right things? Because what I found is some of the goals that I've kind of repeated year after year on my vision board, on my resolution, whatever it is, when I look back at it now, I think the reason why some of those things weren't achieved was because they were rooted in the wrong things. So my hope is that throughout this series of rooted resolutions, that we can get to a place where we know that the things that we are pursuing are coming from the security of being a daughter of God. They're coming from a healthy place, and we are 100% involving God in our journey, because literally without him, nothing's going to be possible, right? So I'm excited to have y'all on this journey with me. I hope you're excited about it. We're right smack dab in the middle of January, so this is like the best time to bring this content to you all. So we're going to go ahead and get into episode 1, Don't Call It Dead. So as y'all know, this episode, let me kind of get comfy, okay? We on the couch now. Hello, friends. Welcome. But this episode, y'all, is all about reviving your faith. And there's literally nothing that I'm going to come on this podcast and talk to you guys about that the Lord hasn't already, talked to me about. So like I said, December was a very tumultuous time for my family. We had a lot going on. And last year as well, it was a beautiful year, but it was filled with a lot of delayed gratification, or a lot of how do I say, God answering, but just not him answering in the way that I thought, or the way that I wanted, or the timing that I wanted, right? So it was a little bit of a different year for me. I felt like I learned something new about God's goodness. I feel like for a long time, God's goodness to me looked like, okay, I'm God's daughter. Like, I pray, the Lord responds. Like, it happens. And that is true. But I also learned this new side of God's goodness, to where sometimes his delay, sometimes the wilderness season, sometimes the space and the gap between me making a request and the Lord answering, even though it doesn't feel the best, it's literally the best thing for me, because the Lord is working some things out within me. He is maturing me in many ways. He is growing me in many ways. So last year was very interesting. So towards the end of the year, I was, just kind of having my time with the Lord, and God oftentimes speaks to me. He speaks to me a lot visually, but a lot of times I kind of hear somebody reading me a letter, or kind of like a text message. You get this random text message from somebody, and you're just like, what? God kind of speaks to me in that way. So I'm going to read to you guys what the Lord spoke to me, and it's going to be the premise for today's episode. So I'm going to read it now. If you guys see me looking down, I'm looking at my iPad. But this is what God spoke to me towards the end of last year. Dear daughter, there are funerals that you have held prematurely. Dreams, desires, prayers, and things that you were believing me for that you've begun to grieve over and put in a grave because you've lost faith in my ability to do it. You've lost faith in my desire to do it. The time that it's taking has discouraged you, and you decided that the discomfort of waiting was too much to bear. So you put it to death instead of continuing to hope in me. You plan funerals where I still see life. You've let go of some of the very desires I placed in your heart. The enemy has convinced you that my character cannot be trusted and that I may not come through, so there is no use in continuing to hope in me. But don't call dead what I still call alive, what I can resurrect and revive, what I'm still working on in your favor. I am the only one who can declare a situation dead. So this was what the Lord spoke to me, y'all. And I was very much so sitting there like, wow, God, okay. Because what I didn't realize is that I had started to grieve God not coming through for me. I think in particular, there was something that my husband and I were praying for about a year. And I think I just kind of got to the point of like getting to prayers of like, God, do you see me? Like, do you care? Like, okay, like, Lord, we've done all the things. Like, when is it gonna manifest? Like, when are we gonna see it? Like, we've been believing, we've been, in faith for this, but like we're just not seeing it. And I had started to grieve, maybe God's not gonna do it. Maybe God's not gonna come through. Maybe, I don't know, did we not pray the right thing? Was it wrong? Should we do this? Should we go back? Well, it seems like this and it seems like that. And maybe God's just not gonna do it. And what was interesting about what we were praying for in particular, it was not something that was like vanity and like extreme. It was an actual need, like something that was necessary, right? And it just seemed like there was just such a gap and delay in it coming. And God spoke this to me during that time. And what I didn't realize is that I had started to kind of make accommodations for God not coming through. Like, have y'all ever had a moment where you were believing for something and then it didn't come through? And then you just kind of like, okay, how do I survive in this atmosphere? Okay, how do I, make adjustments? I see a lot of visuals. So I'm even looking at this in my head, right? And I imagine, maybe I am in the forest, right? I'm camping, right? And somebody's like, I have this nice tent, this beautiful tent for you, this RV. It has a bathroom, it has this, it has everything set up. All you got to do is come here at 5 o'clock and I'm going to bring the RV up and you're going to be able to get in it and get some good night's rest. So I'm like, okay, bet. Like, I trust you. So I show up at 5. Ain't no camper. Ain't no RV. And then it's 6. Still not there. Then it's 7, still not there. Then it's 8, still not there. Then it's 9, still not there. And at this point, I'm like, baby, let me find me some sticks. Okay, let me find me some leaves. Okay, can I pull up a YouTube video of like how to make a tent from scratch? That's kind of how I felt. I felt like I was like waiting for this thing, and when it didn't come, I started to scramble and look around and see, hey, what can I gather up? What can I scrounge up to at least make being here be a little bit more bearable? What can I do to make being in this moment not have as much of a sting or not feel as bad? What can I do to survive the deficit that I'm experiencing in my life, because I believe that God is not going to come through for me? And it was during this time that he spoke this over me and said, hey, Amanda, I didn't call it dead, so why are you? You're grieving, you're planning funerals, you're burying these dreams, these desires, these wants, these prayers that you once prayed to me so passionately. You don't even talk to me about it anymore because you feel like, hey, it's fine, God. Don't even worry about it. Don't worry about it, sweetheart. Don't even worry about it. Don't even put it on your list of things to do. It's okay. It's all right. I don't even want it anymore. We can even get to the place where we start to lie to ourselves and act like we don't have a desire that we actually still do have, because we're afraid, what if God doesn't come through for me? What if all my praying was in vain? What if it's just gonna be like this? Like, do I just need to like get used to the current state of what it is? So in today's episode, I want to really dive into why we get to this place and what to do when this happens. And I believe that the message for you, if you stumbled upon this video, is that as you are looking into this new year, as you are setting out goals, as you are mapping out your intentions, is there something that you have just called dead, that you said it's never going to happen, I might as well forget about it, that God is calling you to say, hey, I need you, I want to revive your faith in this area? This should be on your vision board still. This should be something that you're petitioning me for still. This should be something that you desire still. So let's dive into this. So as we look into the Bible, y'all, there's so many moments where we see dead things brought back to life, right? You have Jesus on the cross. They put him in the tomb. 3 days later, he's like, wait a minute, not over. I'm here. Like, what's up? You have the story of Lazarus being raised from the dead. You have the story of Jairus' daughter being raised from the dead. There's so many stories in the Bible where we see things that look like they were dead, look like it was no hope, be completely turned around, right? Or it's like down to the last minute, down to the last second, and it's like boom, there goes the miracle, there goes the thing, right? So as we kind of process that, what does that tell us, right? That tells us that the Lord revives dead things. So let's start by getting into what causes us to call things dead, right? What are the causes of this? Like, how do we get to this point? How do we get to this moment? How do we get to the second where we say, you know what, forget about it, don't even worry about it, I'm good? And I think the number one thing that makes us call things dead prematurely is timing, y'all. Timing. Ooh, timing. Listen, y'all. Ooh, girl. Timing. We have our own concept of time. We have our own concept of when we need something to happen. And we are not very patient people. Or at least let me not say we. Let me talk about Amanda. Amanda is not always the most patient woman of God, okay? Especially when I'm petitioning the Lord for something, I need it. I'm just like, Lord, right now, in this moment, please, Lord, just do it, God. I know you can do it. I know you're capable. So like, just right now in this moment. A lot of times we don't trust God's timing. And when we pray and we ask God for things, a lot of times we have our own kind of pre-set up timeline of like, okay, I'm praying for this. I need this to happen by the end. This, and then carry the 2, divide the 1 by 5. This one is going to happen. This one I need God to do it, right? So when we don't get things a lot of times, when we believe we should have gotten them, we begin to get weary in our faith. We begin to start just asking God, like, hey, like, when is this going to happen? Even you look at the story of Hannah in the Bible, how she wanted so bad to have a child, but she could not conceive. And the Bible even says because the Lord, like, closed up her womb for a time, right? And Penina is able to have a baby, and she's like tormenting her. And Hannah finally, like, she like, I'm tired of this. So she goes and she prays, and the Bible literally says she prayed to the Lord out of the depths of her anguish. And she was praying so passionately that the man there thought that she was drunk. He's like, hey, why are you taking what wine? She's like, I'm not drunk. I'm praying to the Lord out of the depths of my anguish. So we even see it in scripture, in that story and in many others, that God's timing can kind of cause us to get to a place of like, okay, what's going on? And even looking at John 11:21, this is a story of, Lazarus being raised from the dead. But this particular verse here is super key. This is Martha speaking. She says, Lord, Martha said to Jesus, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. And I think that not trusting God's timing a lot of time can cause us to question what will be different if he had blank. You fill in the blank for whatever is relevant to you. Like, what would have happened if you would have been here at this time? Like, Martha is literally saying it. If you had been here at the time that I believe that you should have been here, my brother would not have died. So you were late and this happened. If you wouldn't have been late, this wouldn't have happened. Now we know in this story, Lazarus is raised from the dead. Like, he's alive, he's fine, right? But at that time, Martha was like, it's too late. And I'm pretty sure the Bible doesn't necessarily indicate her tone here, but if it was me, I'd be like, if you had been here, my brother wouldn't have died. Like, make it make sense, you know? So her frustration here is that if you would have just came in this time, I don't believe that we would be experiencing this. I don't believe that we would have to feel this. I don't believe that this would be true and that would be true if only you had been here. And like I said, we start kind of setting up our plan B so that we can survive. So she's like, okay, well, this has happened. Now we need to do this and we need to do that, because if he would have been here, my brother wouldn't have died. But because he wasn't, now he is. Now Jesus comes into the situation and he does a miracle, and Lazarus is raised from the dead, right? But at that time, for Martha, she's like, all right, now we got to do this. Now we got to plan that. Now we got to figure that out. Now we got to do this, because you are leaving me with this gap. You're leaving me with this deficit. And another thing with timing, I feel, is that we compare our situation to what he's doing for others. Like, I know y'all can relate. When I was single, it was very much so like, Lord, all right, you passing out a man to everybody, they mama, they cousin, they sister. And I've been single as a Pringle forever and a day. And I've been praying to you, and I've been petitioning you. And Lord, I've been out here trying to hold it down, trying to not just be out here in these streets, God. But it's still not happening for me. It's still not happening for me. It's still not happening for me. The timing is off. The timing is off. The timing is off. But also what I do know is that the time that I met my husband was literally the perfect time. And if I would have met him before, when I was like, Lord, are you forgetting about me, all that stuff, baby, I would have messed it up. I know I would. Amanda, she would have done that. But a lot of times, like, the timing of our situation can make us start to look at other people's situation and question, well, God, like, why are you doing that for them now when I'm in such desperate need? Like, I feel like this is urgent for me, but you're not necessarily looking at it as urgent and coming when I am asking you to, or I'm desiring you to. So timing, y'all, is something that can have us call it dead. Timing is something that can make us kind of waver in our faith and say, well, maybe the Lord has forgotten. Maybe the Lord's not going to do it. Maybe he's not going to come through. Another thing that makes us call it dead, y'all, is trial. Okay, it's the circumstances and the surroundings and the situations and the environment surrounding our wait time or surrounding the season, right? So if we look at Mark chapter 4, verse 38, this is, they're out on the boat, it's a storm, and they basically like wake Jesus up, and it's like, you don't see that it's storming out here. So I'm gonna read you this verse. Mark 4:38. Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion. The disciples woke him and said, Teacher, don't you care if we drown? Now, I just love the Bible because I feel like it's very spicy. And the people were Martha was like, if you would have been here, my brother wouldn't have died. And then the disciples are like, this storm out here is crazy. Okay? We need you to wake up out your sleep, because don't you care if we die? Like, don't you care if we drown? Like, what's up? Now, mind you, I don't know about you, but I don't like nobody waking me up out of my sleep. Okay? And the disciples, they are so like frantic, so nervous, so anxious, so alarmed by the situation that they're in, that they literally wake Jesus up and say, "Don't you care if we drown?" And the wrong perspective, y'all, in our trials, the conditions, the environments, while we wait for the Lord, can cause us to question God's character, question God's methods, and forget the authority that we have. If we look at this situation, they were questioning God's character. Teacher, do you not care if we drown? Are you not considerate? Are you not loving? Are you not kind? Are you not intentional? Do you not care? Right? They're literally like, we're about to drown, but you're sleeping. So that tells me that your character is like, you're careless. Like, it's a whole storm out here and the boat is rocking, but you decided that you want to sleep. So they're questioning God's character. They're also questioning God's methods, right? They're literally like, okay, you are asleep in the middle of a storm. Maybe in their mind, he was supposed to like be on the edge of the boat with his hands up, saying, "Storm, be still right now." Maybe he was supposed to be telling them what to do, and hey, you do this and you move that over and you put that there and you do that there. Maybe they thought that he should have been up praying, but in the middle of a storm, I don't know that him sleeping was maybe what they thought would be the best method. Now, after they wake him up, he's like, "Peace be still, storm ceases." It's like, "Hey, you a little faith. Why did you doubt?" There's this whole process. But a lot of times the conditions can make us question God's character, make us question God's method. And then lastly, it can make us forget the authority that we have. Because Jesus literally got up and was like, "Peace be still." And the storm was like over. It was done. Because of the authority he had, right? And I think a lot of times as we are petitioning God for things, as we are, believing God that his purpose and his plan for our life is going to come to pass, that the vision he gave us about the business, the dream that we had about, the launch that we would do, the desire we have in our heart for the family and the kids and all those things, the ministry that he called us to, whatever it is, there are moments as we are in our journey where we face difficulty, we face challenge. And a lot of times those challenges can kind of put us in a place where we forget we have the authority to say, "Hey, I'm a child of God." So I understand that you might roll up on everybody else and it may feel this way, or it may be this challenging, or it may look like this, but I have authority and I have power over this through Jesus Christ. So I'm going to declare my authority. I'm going to declare the power that Jesus has given me versus just kind of rehearsing my pain, rehearsing the story, just completely leaning fully into my emotions. Now there is some emotions that we need to lean into, but fully going there and just saying, "Well, this is just so bad and I just don't know and I don't think, and why is this and why is that," versus, "Man, this is challenging right now, but I have what it takes. Like, this is difficult, but I know I'm gonna come on the other side of this. Like, I absolutely know that I am." So trial is something that definitely can put us in a place where we say, the conditions are too much. All right. The storm is too much. The process is too much. The journey, the steps, it's just too much. Let's just forget about it. Let's not even have faith for that. Let's bury it. Let's forget this dream. Let's forget this thing that we have in our hearts. Let's just put it to the side and let's just call it dead. Like, we don't even have to do it. We don't even have to do it. And then the last thing, y'all, that causes us to call things dead, y'all, is how we talk. How we talk. And not even just how we talk, but how the people around us talk. So I want to kind of go into the story in Mark. This is where Jairus, he's a synagogue leader, and his daughter is not well. So he comes to Jesus and he's like, "Hey, I need you to come see about my daughter. Like, she's dying. It's not looking good. Now, in the middle of him coming to Jesus and saying this is in Mark 5:35. You can read it. In the middle of him saying this, in Mark 5:35, it says, while Jesus was still speaking, some people came from the house of Jairus, the synagogue leader. Your daughter is dead. They said, why bother the teacher anymore? And then when you go down to Mark 5:38, it says this: when they came to the home of the synagogue leader, Jesus saw a commotion with people crying and wailing loudly. He went in and said to them, why all this commotion and wailing? The child is not dead, but asleep. But they laughed at him. Now, this is so important as we are believing God for the vision that he's placed in our heart, as we are trusting God for the plan that he said. Like, we all see it. Like, and I want you to get that thing in your mind right now. Like, what is that thing that you know God has called you to? What is that thing that you know God is giving you like a vision for? Like, you can see it as clear as day. You can picture it. You visualized it. Like, it might be that you're going to start a particular ministry. It might be something in the realm of entrepreneurship. It might be you being a great steward of your home. It might be you developing a product. It might be you having a certain career. So I want you to get that thing in your head. And when we talk about this third thing that causes us to call things dead, I think this one is probably apart from timing, this is probably the one that we have to be the most like cautious about. And as we see in this story in Mark 5, the people who you have surrounding the thing that God has called you to do, the vision that God has placed in your heart, is so important. Now, mind you, this is not on some like, oh, you got all the haters. I'm not really on that energy. What I am on is the responsibility we have to protect what it is that God has called us to birth. Like, there's a responsibility to protect the thing that God has called you to. And a lot of times protecting the vision, the dream, the purpose, the destiny that God has called you to involves being very, very particular about who you surround yourself with and who you involve in your journey towards what God has called you to. Because when we look at this story in Mark 5, we literally see Jairus had a lot of decisions that he had to make when it came to getting Jesus to come and intervene in his daughter's situation. And if he had listened to the people around him, who knows what would have happened in this story. So literally, he's saying, hey, Jesus, come visit my daughter. She needs your help. And while Jesus was still speaking, some people came from the house of Jairus, the synagogue leader. Your daughter is dead, they said. Why bother the teacher anymore? So the first occasion here is his people literally coming up and saying, she dead. Why you gonna bother this man? The man who's supposed to be able to work miracles, the man who intervenes, the man who changes situations, like the Messiah. Like, why bother him? It's already over. It's already done. Why? This is the same thing as somebody saying, hey, why go to that business conference? You already tried, doing a business once before. Like, why you gonna go there? Why reach out to that person? You already did this before. Why go here? Why believe for that again the last time and this and that? Like, there is such a need for us to protect what it is that God has given us, that vision, that dream, because if we do not do that, y'all, our faith can be influenced by those surrounding us. They literally said, give up on it now. That's essentially what they said in here. They said, your daughter is dead. Why bother the teacher anymore? They literally said, give up on it right now. Don't even have him come by and check on it and see. And they literally, y'all, were asking him to trust their word so much. Now, mind you, this is people who came from Jairus' house. He hadn't even been back to see his own daughter to confirm this. So you mean to tell me you want me to trust your word on you calling my situation dead, and then tell me not to worry about getting the involvement of Jesus in it because you called it over? Talk, y'all. But so many times we allow people to do this to us. And then as you move down, right, Mark 5:38, when they came to the home of the synagogue leader, Jesus saw a commotion with people crying and wailing loudly. He went in and said to them, "Why all this commotion and wailing? The child is not dead but asleep." But they laughed at him. Now, mind you, I'm sure these people were like well-meaning, well-intent. They're grieving, right? They've already, in their hearts, they said it's over. They're grieving, they're wailing, they're crying. Now Jesus comes, he says, "Hey, stop all that, because she just sleep." And they literally start laughing at him. There are going to be people, y'all, if we're not careful to protect the vision that God has given us, who are going to laugh at your faith in the midst of a situation not looking the best. As you are pursuing what God has called you to, as you are, chasing after that purpose, that destiny, there are going to be moments in your journey where things don't necessarily look like what God said. That's just a part of it, right? Without those type of moments, what will we actually need to have faith for? But when they happen, will the people around you laugh at you continuing to have faith? Or will they say, "You know what? I'm with you. Okay, he said, cut the commotion, she sleep. We about to rejoice. We're excited. Like, she's just sleep. We thought it was this, but it's actually that." So just being so careful about like how we allow other people to talk about what God has placed on our hearts, but also how we talk about it ourselves. Like, are we the ones saying, "Lord, I'm just not going to bother you anymore. It's already this." Are we the ones saying, "God, you telling me to still believe this?" Oh, we laughing at him. You know what I'm saying? Like, are we the ones who are bringing this type of talk in our situation? So as we are looking at this concept of don't call it dead, y'all, the timing of God, what we believe about God's timing, the trials that we experience and our perspective and our authority in those moments, and how we allow others to talk and how we talk about what we are believing God for is going to influence whether our faith stays like alive and vivacious or it dwindles and we start having funerals for things that God is still working on. So what do we do to stay in this place of faith? What do we do to not get to the point where we call things dead prematurely? So I have 3 things for you here. Number 1, y'all, is to clear out the room. So rid yourself of every hindrance to a miracle taking place in your life. This is literally people, distractions, accommodations that you've made for if God doesn't do it. Like, clear out the room, clear out the space. Sometimes, y'all, we have to just be more intentional about who we're allowing in our space. Distractions. It's social media right now. Something that's making you call the things that the Lord has placed on your heart dead prematurely. Are you looking and scrolling at so many people's lives and so many people's stories and saying, "I'll never get there. That won't happen for me. I don't know when that's going to go." Or are you looking at somebody else's story saying, "Lord, I've been praying to conceive for 5 years, but so-and-so just announced a pregnancy, and why are you forgetting me?" And blah, blah, blah. Like, distractions. Like, what are those things that we need to rid and clear our space of so that we can begin to focus in on our faith, right? And then secondly is clean up your thought life. Y'all, our thought life is so important. And I'm super excited about some episodes planned in the future to where I'm going to be bringing on some professional therapists just to talk about the connection between our thought life and our faith, right? Casting down those thoughts from the enemy. Meditating on God's word. Removing voices that are not from God. Like, there's such a space, especially when you are believing God for something and the timing is off and the trials are real and the people around you are talking crazy. You got to kind of hyper focus, y'all. Like, your meditation on God's word has to be strong, because if not, all you have to meditate on is what everybody is saying. If we're not putting in more of God's word and what he has to say, and we're just taking in whatever is in the environment, the elements, we're going to begin to meditate. We're going to begin to repeat. We're going to start to regurgitate what it is that we're taking in. So we have to be so intentional about cleaning up our thought life. And last, y'all, is changing your confession. Speaking God's truth over what you're believing for. Speak it, write it, declare it. Speak it, write it, declare it. And this is key. This is something that God told me during this time as well. Not saying anything is saying something. So you got to actually be an active participant and say something, because not saying anything, not declaring anything is actually saying something. Your confession should be, hey, God, even though this is difficult, even though the time is delayed, even though I'm struggling a little bit, I still believe. And then you fill in the blank, right? Even if you have to get out a piece of paper, this is something I've had to do time and time again, especially when I'm struggling in my faith. Lord, I'm going to get out a sheet of paper and I'm going to write what I know to be true versus how I feel. Because I feel like you don't care, and maybe you're not going to come through. But what I know is that you do love me and you do care, and you are going to come through for me. And you've been faithful to me so many times before. And your word gave me promises that if I'm praying in accordance to your will, that you're going to come through and do it. Your word literally gives me promises. Like, I feel like this delay is going to cause this and it's going to cause that, and why, and I'm being overlooked and da da da. But I know this. And at some point, as you navigate and you start to change your confession, you're reading that confession, right? You're still dealing with how you feel, because feelings are real and they are to be acknowledged. But at some point, as I'm also feeding myself God's word and I'm changing my confession, there's going to kind of be an exchange. And as I continue to go on, my faith is going to begin to increase. Again, not negating how I'm feeling, but allowing how I'm feeling and the truth of God's word to come together to produce what's true, to produce what's real, right? So clearing out the room, ridding yourself, people, distractions, cleaning up your thought life, and then changing your confession, y'all. I truly believe that as you are navigating your goals and intentions for this new year, that there may be some things that you have called dead prematurely that God is saying, I'm still working on that. I'm still going to do that. I still care about that. I haven't changed my mind about that. I still see you doing that. Like, what is that thing for you? And I really encourage you, as you lead today's episode, to really just begin to ask God and pray and just say, Lord, is there something that I'm grieving over that you're still working on? Is there something that I plan a funeral for that you are still calling alive? God, can you help me revive my faith? Lord, can you help me believe again for this thing that you want to still do in my life? Lord, can you help me to work through my doubts and my fears and my worries and my anxieties, and really get to a place where I'm renewed in my faith in this area, God? Lord, help me. Like, this is one of those spaces where you just say, Lord, help. Because a lot of times the things that we have kind of let go and we buried, it took a lot for us to bury it. And it may take a lot for you to bring that thing up again. But I truly believe that as we go into this new year, the revival of your faith is so necessary. I think there are spaces, dreams, prayers, visions, desires that you had that the Lord is saying, it's not over yet. It's not. I'm still working on it. I'm still going to do it, but I need you to revive your faith. I need you to meet me in this, right? I need you to come back to the table and say, Lord, I believe, so that he has the space to still do it for you. So I really pray that today's episode blessed you. I pray that you took a lot from it. Like I said, I'm excited to bring to you all worksheets to accompany the podcast episode. So you can go to the link below to download that absolutely for free. It's going to help you process the content that we talked about today and really make sure that you don't just listen to what's being said, but you implement it, that you take this to prayer, that you ask God, to give you more revelations from this. What is God saying to you specifically through what has been said in this episode today? I want to make sure that you truly process this and you implement it into your life. So thank you so much for listening. If you haven't yet, please hit the subscribe button to subscribe to this YouTube channel, or if you're listening on audio, hit follow to make sure that you're updated every time we drop a new podcast episode. Also, I would love to hear how this podcast benefited you. So please leave me a comment or send me a DM on Instagram. I'm at Amanda Ross-Hardin, and I would love to hear how today's episode blessed you. You can also leave me a voice memo. Just go to Instagram, hit the little microphone down in the bottom of the corner, and just record a voice memo and let me know how today's episode impacted you. I would love to share this on the podcast, of course, with your permission. And until next week, y'all, let's kind of talk about where we need to revive our faith. And I'm excited to see what God is going to just bring up for you and what he has to say for you. So until next week, y'all. Bye.